Good afternoon, everyone. We are waiting for more folks to join us, and we will start in a minute or two. Thank you so much for joining us. Just hold on tight for one more minute. Thank you. All right. Yeah, folks are still joining us. So just one more minute and we'll start.
Michael, did I tell you guys we got the Department of Defense contract for the Military Installation Resilience Review? So thank you all so much, and we'll make sure to involve you in all that. You too, Melanie.
Congratulations, Isabel.
Yes, yes,
Congratulations.
yes. I'm very excited. So, with all your help, appreciate it.
Yeah, it's 1:02. I don't want to keep our panelists. I know you have a busy schedule, so we will start. Welcome, everyone. My name is Aralda Agoli. I'm the program manager for the CARES Act Disaster Recovery Program. And before we start, I want to say thank you to all the panelists here today. Thank you so much for taking time off your busy schedules and participating here. I will go over the next slide. Mark, if you want to move it. A little bit of a housekeeping. If you're not familiar with GoToWebinar, but it's just like any other platform, such as Zoom or Microsoft Teams, you may open and close the window in the top right through the orange arrow. You can choose your audio by choosing the mic and the speakers, or use the voice over IP. Submit questions into the questions or chat box. If you have any issues or trouble, please text me, contact me personally in a private message or email at eagoli@sfrpc.com. The program today will be recorded, and we will post it on our website within a day or two as soon as the recording is ready. With that, I am done, and I will pass it over to Isabel, our Executive Director.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Isabel Cosio-Carballo. I'm the Executive Director of the Regional Planning Council. I had the pleasure of working at the council since 1996 and working with all these fine people that you have here today, the experts in our region on economic development, and really the group of people that we rely on at the council in our work when we're working on economic development. So again, welcome to our guests, both in the audience and our panel. I'm pleased to introduce you now to our moderator, Melanie Dickinson. I think everyone knows her. She's the president and publisher of the South Florida Business Journal. A little bit about Melanie. She's been with, I know it's hard to believe, but she's been with American City Business Journals for more than 24 years. I don't believe it, but that's what my paper says. So you can tell. So she's been there. She's an institution. She's been leading the publication since 2008. She is a community leader and serves on numerous boards and nonprofits, including the boards of several of the organizations that are here today. As you might well imagine, over the years, the Business Journal has experienced double-digit increases in print subscribers and online readership, making the South Florida Business Journal the #1 source for business. We really couldn't get by without it. And so we're delighted that Melanie accepted our invitation because we know that she firmly believes that collaboration between the 3 counties is what makes South Florida such a vibrant region. And our guest is too, we have a long history of working collaboratively. So with that, please welcome Melanie, and pass it over to you, Melanie.
Thank you, Isabel, for that very gracious introduction. I appreciate it. And Raldo and Isabel for putting this program together. It is really my pleasure to be here with all of you as moderator today. And before we get started, I just thought I would quickly share a little bit about the South Florida Regional Planning Council, which I do know, I'm sure many of you here today are very familiar with. They have a mission that is truly critical to our region's success as they focus on identifying the long-term challenges and opportunities that face Southeast Florida, as well as they assist our region's leaders in developing and implementing creative strategies that really result in a more prosperous and equitable communities. Not to mention they see a healthier and cleaner environment, and of course a very more vibrant economy that we all can enjoy. So they've been around since 1974, serving Monroe, Miami-Dade, and Broward counties through regional collaborative planning. And in 1994, the council was officially designated the South Florida Economic Development District by the U.S. Department of Commerce. So the council offers numerous services with a very robust economic development program, which includes planning, technical assistance, revolving loan fund programs for small businesses, COVID impacted businesses, and other critical needs. Which brings us to today, where we're going to just talk about some of those needs through our discussion on the future of South Florida's workforce post-COVID. So ideally, today's program is designed to provide help and insight when it comes to developing and implementing your own innovative approaches to economic development within your communities. So we are just so fortunate to have with us our region's top experts sharing their knowledge and experience to help you all get there. So I'm going to give a quick rundown of what we can expect. First, we're going to hear from Mark Cassidy, the Regional Planning Council's Economic Development and Research Manager, who's going to share a summary of the current overall labor market and then open up to a quick Q&A on his research. And then right after Mark, we're going to roll into the panel discussion on the future of the South Florida workforce. So today's panel experts are going to share details on everything from what types of incentives each region is focusing on to drilling down on which jobs, professions, and skill sets are most in demand. And they're also going to talk about what private and public sector leaders can do to support workforce transitions, and of course, the importance of establishing effective partnerships between the business community, important, government, workforce development boards, colleges, and other key stakeholders. And then, of course, we're going to mix in a conversation on building equity, specifically through the CARES Act. We're going to hear how everyone's organization is addressing the importance of reaching and impacting low-income communities and working towards achieving equity. So, to get us started, I'm going to go ahead. I would like to introduce the Economic Development and Research Manager of the South Florida Regional Planning Council, Mark Cassidy. Mark, take it away.
Thank you very much, Melanie. And before I get started, I just wanted to extend another thank you to our panelists. They're the real experts today. But before I get into it, I just wanted to take the opportunity to set the stage with some of the newest data available to help us understand a little bit more about where we're currently at in the labor market in South Florida and abroad. And just once again, Melanie gave a shout out to some of our services, revolving loan fund and resiliency work. But I just wanted to take the opportunity to give one more plug to, in particular, one of my favorite services and technical analysis that we offer at the Council, Economic Impact Analysis, using our software, REMI, Regional Economic Models. It's a very strong software which really helps identify, those larger impacts whenever you can bring jobs to the region. So without further ado, just wanted to take the opportunity to present some DEO data, Bureau of Labor Statistics data, some census data, and help to tell the story of what I see as a stalling recovery at a crossroads in our region. So to start from a national and state context, as we know, unemployment has been, or was before the pandemic, was strongly decreasing, continued to add jobs, but once the pandemic hit, sky high unemployment in the state of Florida and across the US. but quickly started to get that recovery as we started to figure out how to deal with COVID, how to deal with the lockdowns, deal with teleworking, et cetera. And you see towards the end of 2020, Florida started to make even stronger recovery than the United States. One thing that I think that might have contributed to that is Florida's aggressive reopening policies compared to the rest of the United States. However, recently, the rest of the US is starting to catch up to Florida. Another piece of data related to unemployment is the unemployed people per job opening ratio. And so this is an interesting data point because, of course, following the similar pattern of unemployment, this went sky high when the pandemic started. And as we know, as it progressed through 2020 and early 2021, there was so many jobs available and people were seemingly not taking those jobs. However, the unemployed people per job opening ratio is now at about where it was before the pandemic. So I see this as that piece of data is starting to improve. I think that people are starting to look for these jobs that are available. So what are some of these jobs that are available? Well, looking at national job openings, which is the most refined that we can get as far as recent data, of course, leisure and hospitality is leading the pack. Strong job openings in that industry. We know that they were the most impacted overall. And so, of course, they're going to start to make that recovery as things start to get back to normal / adapt. Then the next group of job opening industries that are strong are the industries that were not able to adapt to teleworking as well, manufacturing, trade, and those industries. These were severely impacted at first, but now as we're starting to get back to normal and start to adapt, these are the job openings that we're starting to see open up a lot more. Then the lesser job openings are the industries that were maybe less so impacted overall from the start, like construction, or those industries like finance that were able to maintain and through teleworking. So looking across the state at the county level, you can see as far as unemployment in September of this year, Miami-Dade, 5.6%. It's one of the highest unemployment rates at the county level across the state. Broward, shortly or close by, but Monroe County recently has had a significant improvement in their unemployment, which was suffering earlier in the year, but now they're starting to make a good recovery and they're faring pretty well compared to the rest of the state. If we break that down, according to time over the past year, you can see that strong impact to unemployment in Monroe County. Of course, given their industry mix, there are significant leisure and hospitality sectors. They were really struck hard when the pandemic first hit. Miami-Dade so compared to Broward and the state, less so because they have a more diversified industry mix. And then you can see the recovery through to 2021, and then you can see the spike at the beginning of the year. That coincides with a spike in COVID cases, but you can see that we've generally been making a recovery as far as unemployment, and Monroe County is now leading the pack as we saw. And while Broward has been relatively mirroring the same patterns as Florida, which was interesting. So as far as labor force and who's looking for work, who wants to be working, well, we saw those significant impacts to the labor force through 2020, especially in Monroe County and Miami-Dade. But we've seen a recovery in Miami-Dade, but not so much in Broward County, or sorry, in Miami-Dade County, which was in gray. And so one big factor that contributes to labor force is population. So a couple interesting things are available to be seen now with the 2020 census data. As you know, the census does its counts every 10 years. And then in between that, it provides estimates. So the 2020 and all of the decennial years are the most reliable counts for population. So in 2020, the population in Monroe County jumped to 82,000, which was a 12% increase, which is very significant. And I mean, I don't know if there was a huge, residential growth in that county. I don't think so at that level. But what I think this is that the estimation statistic, methodology that the census was using to estimate the population was underestimating it. So I think that Monroe County, it's kind of adjusted at 82,000, but its population will remain relatively level around those levels. Now in Miami-Dade County, population actually decreased in 2020, which is interesting because the narrative of, domestic migration, people moving from the Northeast and everywhere, that was happening. There were a lot of people moving into our region from across the country. However, the biggest contributor to population growth in Miami-Dade County is international growth. And so in 2020, there was a lot of, there was hardly any international migration that contributed to, they didn't have any people to fill those, to fill up in Miami-Dade County. And so what you'll see in the forecasts for 2021 and 2022 is that population growth will start to get back to normal at its modest about 1% levels. But you can see those impacts in 2020, and that is what was impacting the labor force. So taking a step back to the state employment gains by industry, on the left is the over year from September, so from 2020 September to 2021. And then on the left is from this month, or from September to August. And so what we saw over the past year was those significant increases in employment in leisure and hospitality and so on. But as you can see on the right, those gains are starting to reduce a little bit. I think that leisure and hospitality is starting to make back all of its losses and is starting to reach more of an equilibrium as those are slowing down. You can see more recently, retail trade is starting to pick up, and trade, transportation, and utilities, which is a good thing, great high-paying jobs. And that also relates to an industry that wasn't able to adapt it through teleworking, and so now that they're able to do so, you see those employments coming back. Looking at the most recent available data at the industry level, Monroe County is not available this recent. They're only available at the first quarter level. So I'll analyze Miami-Dade and Broward County. And you can see over the past year, those significant gains in leisure and hospitality especially, but also in trade, transportation, professional and business services as well. But taking a look at what's been happening more recently, that's starting to slow down, especially in leisure and hospitality, as you can see. I think that this large loss in financial activities is a one-time thing. And you can see construction industry starting to recover as well, which is good. And finally, taking a look at our wages and how wages have been doing in the past year, they've finally been on the rise. They were stalling in 2020, in the earlier part of 2021, or sorry, towards the later part of 2021, and then they started to make that recovery at the end of the year. Monroe County, of course, given their industry mix, has that lower set of average weekly wages, but they've been making that recovery recently. So making some of the connections of all those data points, we've been growing the past year, but we see that it's slowing down. We see more people looking for work, more jobs are available, but employment growth is starting to level out. We're still gaining jobs, but the speed that they're recovering is starting to slow down. I think that we're going to need to focus on our industry mix. Remote work is up 7 times over the past 10 years. And so what we need to think about is hospitality going to remain strong, especially meetings and conferences? I think for one, we have seen such a strong recovery in hospitality that it will remain strong. But I think that it's important to understand that it might be reaching its equilibrium level, and we need to look to diversify our economy into more higher skilled jobs to move to the next level. And so with that, I thank you for your time, and I'll open it up to everyone for some questions.
There are no questions in the chat box, but if anyone has any questions for Mark, please feel free to do so. Otherwise, we can move forward, and if anyone has any questions for you, Mark, we can go back to it later if needed.
Great. Well, thank you, Mark. That was really great information and very much appreciated, very insightful, and I'm really glad to hear that the jobs that are available are being filled. I know that everybody listening to this is probably very happy with that. So with that, we're going to go right into our panel discussion now. It is my very big pleasure to welcome our panelists, the CEOs of the South Florida Economic Development Agencies, and the Executive Director of the South Florida Workforce Investment Board. I want to welcome all of you and thank you for carving out the time to talk with us and tackle the future of South Florida's workforce post-COVID. That's a big post. So as a reminder, we're going to save a little time at the end as well for any questions. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat and we will take a look at those towards the end of the presentation here. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to ask each of our panelists to give some personal introductions very quickly, a quick background, 30-second elevator pitch for each of you, who you are and what you do. And Rick Beasley, why don't we go ahead and start with you? You can tell us a little bit about the South Florida Workforce Investment Board.
Well, Melanie, thank you so much. It's a good afternoon to see you. I hope we get a chance to see each other in person. Again, Rick Beasley, I am the Executive Director of Career Source South Florida. That's our DBA, but our legal name is the South Florida Workforce Investment Board. We provide employment and training solutions for Dade and Monroe County. Also, I'm the chairman of the Greater Miami Chamber of Commerce here in Miami-Dade, and we have some great working relationships with Mike Finney, the chamber, majority of the chambers of commerce here in Dade County. But our main goal is to help our employer community find talent, real quick and sweet.
Thank you, Rick. That's a very important main goal, so we appreciate that. Mike Finney, can you share a little bit about the Beacon Council with everyone?
Sure. Thanks, Melody, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mike Finney. I'm the president and CEO at the Miami-Dade Beacon Council. We serve as the official economic development partner for Miami-Dade County, serving all 34 municipalities and, of course, all areas that are unincorporated as well. Our principal focus is on helping existing businesses that are in a growth mode, assisting entrepreneurs who are looking to start up businesses here, and then, of course, doing outreach across the United States and really across the world to attract businesses to Miami-Dade County.
We certainly know there's a lot of activity going on. Thanks, Mike. Bob Swindell, tell us what's going on with the Greater Fort Lauderdale Alliance.
Well, thank you, Melanie. Again, my name is Bob Swindell, and I'm president and CEO of the Greater Fort Lauderdale Alliance. We're the economic development organization for Broward County and its 31 municipalities. Our role is very similar to what Mike mentioned for the Beacon Council. We manage projects, and a big part of our focus is on our business marketing for Broward County and creating a business identity. The only, I think, interesting, especially for this audience, part of that I think has changed a little bit that I'd share because it's important is, we are focusing more and more of our marketing and branding dollars on building the talent brand. We think it's really important to not only retain the talent we have in South Florida, but to draw additional talent here, because what we see companies doing is they follow the talent stream. And if your community has got talent, that has equal to, if not greater, interest and influence on a location decision as low taxes and some of the other things that we talk frequently about South Florida. So I think that talent brand and expanding that is a larger percentage and focus of what we do at the Alliance.
Couldn't agree with you more, Bob. That's great. Kelly Smallridge, tell us what's going on at the Business Development Board of Palm Beach County.
Good afternoon, Melanie, and thank you for having me. Like Bob and Mike, my name is Kelly Smallridge, CEO of the Business Development Board, and I serve 39 cities in a similar fashion to the Beacon Council and the Greater Fort Lauderdale Alliance. Our primary focus is to grow jobs, high quality jobs, high value added jobs in targeted industry sectors through recruitment, retention, and expansion of companies to this area. In previous years, prior to COVID, the vast majority of our time was spent growing companies in our backyard. However, post-COVID, 70% of our time right now is spent entertaining, meeting, and selling companies from outside of the state of Florida on Palm Beach County, and that in itself creates some new challenges for us. So it's 70% recruitment and 30% retention and expansion, the complete opposite of our focus in previous years. While we focus on job creation, retention, and expansion, we also focus very heavily on competitiveness issues. We take a look at our infrastructure, we look at the way that we're marketing and selling our area, and we also work very heavily with our academic partners, universities, public and private schools to showcase Palm Beach County. Thank you.
All right, well, there you have it, everyone. You can see why these guys are running our economic development. They certainly are passionate and have it down to a science exactly what they do. So I appreciate that. And I can't wait to talk more with you all about what we're all seeing here. And so we're going to go straight into our first question, which no doubt is something that probably comes right out of your annual planning retreat discussions and ongoing agenda item reviews. So tell us, what would you say is the emerging focus for companies and industries for each of your specific counties? And Kelly, since you already started with the targeted industries and stuff, why don't we go ahead and start with you?
So is your question, what are the target industries we're after?
Well, it's a part of what you're seeing in terms of companies and industries coming in and what you're focused on, what you're
Okay.
focused on.
Yes, so we are very fortunate to have a developer come into town recently and create some premier office space for Palm Beach County, specifically in West Palm Beach. And while we focus on 6 targeted industries, we are definitely focused on this Wall Street South initiative with the movement of private equity, hedge funds, and financial service firms coming to our area. We also are very focused on standing up the University of Florida's 2 projects that they have recently announced in Palm Beach County. Go Gators. One is the takeover of Scripps, which is a 545 employee life science operation. University of Florida has announced that they will now take over that entire facility, its labs and its employees, and focus on clinical trials and translational research. So on top of the financial services, University of Florida's life science focus, the University of Florida is also going to be building something completely separate. They will be building 2 million square feet in our downtown West Palm Beach area. And we are assisting them in creating artificial intelligence, data analytics, cybersecurity, higher educational programs. And then we're also focused on aviation, logistics, distribution, and manufacturing. So those are the core areas, but still very concerned about attracting a workforce, not having enough employees to fill the spots that are open, and also dealing with the additional infrastructure that comes when you flip your model to one that brings in more out-of-state companies. You need more homes, you need more streets, you need more private school openings, more public school openings. It's a whole different dynamic when you go from a retention and expansion, build your backyard, to bringing in more from the outside. So we are dealing with 11,000 new people who moved into our county last year, with 41% of that 11,000 coming directly from New York.
Thanks, Kelly. Hopefully it's a good problem. And yes, congratulations on UF. There's a lot of us Gator fans now that my son is there. I'm definitely one. I was always one. Bob, since you're smiling so much, everyone, I'm going to go to Bob. Tell us what's going on in Broward, what you're seeing.
Well, I'm smiling every time I hear the word Gator. I have to smile. So this happens when you spend too much time in Gainesville. Congratulations to Kelly and the team in West Palm Beach. It's a great addition to their education. What's available and part of the marketplace. And unlike Kelly, we spend a lot of time marketing public education in Broward County, as well as what private education is available. That is a driver for people that are considering a relocation. I think very much like Kelly indicated, our number of retention projects was down significantly. And for us to count a project or a company as retention, we have a pretty high bar. We just don't count a project as a retention project if someone says in passing, well, I'm thinking about leaving my city that I'm in now because I'm unhappy about some permitting issue that came up. It has to be legitimate, where they're actually looking at other sites and are seriously considering a different location. And I think it's one of the things that folks realized during the pandemic was that Florida was, a really good place to have your business, especially South Florida. So fewer and fewer companies were looking at leaving. It was more about, growing their business, but it wasn't a threat of leaving. It was just, how do we, add to our people? And now we want to have a campus instead of a standalone building. So those are the types of projects that we've been working on an expansion side, but really more expansion even than retention. New business coming to market. Aviation is one of our highest priorities. We work very closely with Broward College. They have a phenomenal aviation program. They have a 4-year aviation degree that they can grant, as well as the traditional 2-year degrees. But they also have a wide cross-section of certificate training for folks in aviation, whether it's airframe maintenance and repair, avionics, engine work. And that maintenance, repair, and overhaul is a huge, huge opportunity for us. They're good paying jobs, and they're growing in abundance, and it's clean manufacturing. So that's a major focus for us. Technology would probably be the next if I was ranking them. We've seen a great visibility that Miami and Mike and his team have gotten regarding technology. Mayor Suarez has been a social media warrior and has done really well in building awareness about technology in South Florida. To be honest, I think a lot of that started back a few years ago when we all worked together on the Amazon HQ2 project. And Mike Finney was really, the key quarterback that brought us all together and said, as large as Miami is, we can't check all the boxes for Amazon. So we need to work with our partners in Palm Beach and Miami and Broward. So that was a great project for us to work on. And then, making the list of the top 20 in the country got a lot of attention for us. And we're still hearing from companies that, we're looking at, if a company like Amazon that's got more access to data than virtually any other company in the world says that South Florida is one of the top 20 markets for a technology location, we need to look and see what Amazon discovered. So it created a lot of companies of interest coming to us. We see a lot of continued expansion in technology. Part of our challenge is making sure that our education institutions keep up. So we work closely with Nova Southeastern University and Florida Atlantic University and Florida International University on, what they're, folks they're graduating from their computer science, electrical engineering programs, and what companies are looking for, so we can get better alignment of those two skill sets. But those are crucially important targets for us. And the nice thing is, those run very similar across all 3 counties. So as we build out the concentration of companies in those key industries, it really helps us as we try to attract more companies, because as I said earlier, companies follow talent. And if you can document that you've got a talent cluster in your region, you're going to draw more of those types of companies to your area.
Thank you, Bob. I do always love hearing when you all work together to bring in great businesses to the region. That's always near and dear to my heart. Mike, I'm going to ask you to kind of weigh in on what's going on in Miami-Dade
Sure.
County.
So if you're short on time, Melody, I could just say ditto Kelly, ditto Bob, because the 3 of us, we work together very effectively. And literally, that relationship of collaboration started the first month I was in town. Bob and Kelly invited our teams to come together to really strategically talk about what it meant to work together and how we could get our each community behind some of the efforts that we thought were going to be necessary. The reality is it proved important within months of that, as Bob has referenced, the whole Amazon thing, but it's continued. We have on a regular basis continued to engage to make sure that our communities are focusing on the unique attributes and strengths that we have here in South Florida. And as much as Kelly is clearly a major beneficiary of what's happening with the University of Florida, trust me, Miami-Dade and Broward will benefit from that as well, with the innovation capacity they have and the potential for startups and other things. Having said that, given that this is not just a ditto, we are seeing an incredible amount of growth in financial services. We've had some major successes over the last year with companies like Blackstone and CI Financial out of Canada, ACI Worldwide, one of the world's largest payment processing companies, and I can go on. Literally, it's been an absolute, robust opportunity to increase the amount of private equity, venture capital, hedge funds, and other financial types of organizations in our community. We've also really come into our own as a tech community. And again, I don't want to overstate it, but we often say, and if I talk to my peers around the United States, you'll hear a lot of us profess that we are a tech hotbed. We're the next Silicon Valley or whatever the case may be. And it really doesn't matter until the entrepreneurs start saying it. until the investors, the venture capitalists and the private equity folks, and until the companies really start to show up in mass, and it's an organic thing that's causing it to happen. That's where Miami is right now when it comes to tech. We have this incredibly robust environment where the entrepreneurs are showing up, the investors are showing up, the innovations are coming out of our colleges and universities that's creating opportunities for entrepreneurs in Miami-Dade to stay here. And of course, the talent is returning as a result of that. And that's a lot of the talent that was going to our great universities throughout the state of Florida and migrating to other locations. Now we have this incredible reversal of that, and we're seeing the talent come here. Other key sectors, trade and logistics, aerospace, healthcare and life sciences. And we are actually seeing a lot of success in an area that we don't often talk about, which is all of our creative industries. That would be the industry you're in, Melanie, be it media, be it fashion and other industry sectors. We're seeing a lot of success there. And of course, we're all happy to see the comeback of our bread and butter, hospitality and tourism. And that represents an incredible stickiness and staying force that we all need to be concerned about when it's not performing on par with what we think it should. Because when those meetings and events are coming to our communities, we're having an opportunity to engage with professionals from the various associations that are connected to the meetings and conferences that come here. So we're seeing a lot of activity across the board, and literally the same kinds of opportunities that Fort Lauderdale or Palm Beach and Broward are seeing, we're seeing them in Miami-Dade. And we could not be more enthusiastic about this incredible opportunity that we're seeing. Our pipeline is growing. It's growing pretty much across the board, and it really is representative of what we think this community has been working toward for the past 10 to 12 years.
Thank you, Mike. And nothing is truer than South Florida. We have our unique strengths here. We definitely do. Rick, you have anything you want to add to this? A lot has been said.
My hats go off to Bob, to Kelly, and to Mike, and again, of really marketing the southeast part of the state. We are the economic engine for the state of Florida, and I think being able to attract new companies here is fantastic. Again, I think the merging focus, I mean, it's not just the industries, because again, you're looking at creative industries, you're looking at finance, hospitality, IT, healthcare, trade, logistics. I think some of the companies that we've been dealing with is strictly concentrating on finding the talent. And there's a number of projects that we're working with the Beacon Council and others, our education providers. And again, to keep the companies here is always about developing talent, working with our school district, and ensure that when they're looking at places to grow, develop their business, we want to make sure it's done in South Florida, not just in Dade County, but in Palm Beach as well as in Broward. Bob, I live in Broward. I'm a little, I have my home there. So, but the idea is really for us to concentrate on how we work together to enhance talent. These guys do a fantastic job recruiting. My job in working with my colleagues in CareerSource Broward and CareerSource Palm Beach is to help work with these individuals and their organizations to develop the talent that can keep and grow South Florida.
Thank you, Rick. So that gave us a pretty good opening overview of what we're all seeing in each of the counties. Let's talk a little bit about how, we all know how important economic incentives are vital, when attracting businesses and new businesses to the region, even more so important when we're trying to get companies to relocate, right? So talk a little bit about the incentives that you each are offering, what strategies you guys are using to attract new businesses. And of course, we'd love to hear, how you address our local workforce when that answer, based on what Rick was just talking about, and everybody, we know that talent is very important in that. So Bob, you want to give us a start on that one?
Sure. Thanks, Melanie. And Rick, thanks for the shout out. Glad that you're a Broward resident, but you're a perfect example of how the boundaries in South Florida are really just artificial, and that we drive over them all the time, and they're seamless to our visitors. So it's important that we keep that in mind when we try to build out our region. As Rick said, we have a very close working relationship with CareerSource Broward. Carol Hilton, our new CEO of CareerSource Broward, serves on the Alliance board. We work closely. We've had a tradition for 17 years now. We've had an executive on loan from CareerSource Broward that works as part of our business development team and helps with workforce development. It's been a phenomenal partnership over the years, and it has worked out extraordinarily well. So, to Rick's point, the getting access to talent is probably the highest priority that companies place in a new location. They want to be sure they can attract the talent, or that the talent is there. So a lot of times we'll get the question is, well, can we attract, if I can't find the right programmers in a specific language, can I attract them to your community? And one of the nice things about South Florida is that we are a highly desirable destination, and we just need to really build out that brand. I think one of our natural challenges is just the perception of South Florida. We're a young community when you think about it. When you look at the availability of cultural amenities and all the things that are available now, service like Brightline that connects our 3 counties much more closely than we've ever seen before. Those are great assets when we market and promote this area and the connectivity. And when an employer realizes that they can draw from a population of 6 million instead of just the population of one of our counties, pretty simply with something like Brightline as a transit tool, that really helps us make the pitch. I think one of the challenges that we're all adapting to, and we're doing it in my own organization, is what is the appropriate mix of remote and in-person work, and how do you maintain a corporate culture while offering some of the perceived benefits of working remotely, and what do those policies look like, and how do we determine the amount of square footage we're going to need as a business, figuring out what that new model is going to look like. And we talk to our technology companies here like Citrix and UKG and Royal Caribbean Cruise Lines has a large IT facility in Broward. They're all wrestling with it as well. But I've heard firsthand that the ability to whiteboard a problem and really innovate is highly compromised in a purely virtual situation. It's that close engagement, being able to be with a group of people and throwing out different ideas and getting people from sometimes different backgrounds together in different professions looking at a similar problem to come up with innovative answers that are breakthrough. So I think the availability of talent is something that we're all focused on. And the last thing I'd say from an incentive standpoint, we have training used to be one of the incentives we talked a lot about because our legislature believed in reinvesting in our workforce. Those funds, I will tell you, are scarce right now. That doesn't help us on the recruitment side. I often say economic development is like romance. Everyone wants to feel pursued. And the way you make someone feel pursued is, here's a little bit extra. We've got a great package for you. You've got a phenomenal tax benefit. You're in a right to work state. You got great access to talent, great outdoor activities. We're spread out. So if a pandemic issue were to come up again, South Florida is a pretty good location to be working from. But the reality is, those small, incentives, and we had a pretty modest program that we worked at the state level. And now that that's gone by the wayside, what you're seeing is, and I think Mike and Kelly would say the same thing, we're working on a similar types of programs where we incentivize and reward a company based on each high wage job they're going to bring to our community. Now that's not as robust as it used to be when the state was a partner in that and took over or absorbed a large part of the cost. But trying to come up with a system, and we want a system that's consistent. Our county has been great in Broward about working with us on specific projects. And I always say that a project, depends on the merits of that specific project. But when you're working with somebody new to the area, you want to give them a sort of a baseline. If you're going to create 500 jobs, paying $70,000 a year in Broward County, this is roughly the incentive that we could put together for you working with our city and our county. And we need those types of, we need that consistent tool. So it can't be, well, let's get back with our governmental partners and in a few months we can get back to you on what an incentive might look like. That doesn't work. So you've got to have a system where you can say, hey, if you deliver on these things and you create this number of jobs and you meet the criteria, this is what you could qualify for. We still have to go through approval process with our county and city government. But if you say that you will do these things in creating new jobs in our community, here's what we can do to help offset some of those relocation costs, because we know it costs significant dollars to move a location or to expand and open up a new location. And we don't have to beat Georgia or Texas or North Carolina when it comes to incentives, but we want to put something on the table. So again, feeling that we do want you, we are pursuing you, and here's a little something extra that our community wants to be able to put in to just quantify how much we want you in our city and our county. Again, it doesn't have to beat those other programs, but there's tools that we have to have. So we're doing some of that stuff locally, and then if we have time, maybe we'll talk about some of the new infrastructure things that we're putting together in our counties that aren't a direct cash incentive, but are incentive because they provide, a much needed resource or part of the infrastructure for a business relocating to South Florida.
Great, thank you, Bob. And I have to say, I know I am very happy to see Brightline running again and connecting us all together. So that is great news. Mike, you want to add to that? Talk a little bit about what you're doing in Dade County for incentives and strategies for new business.
Yeah, so incentives is always a tricky conversation to have, especially here in the state of Florida. A little over a year, maybe almost 2 years ago now, the primary incentive that all of us use to help recruit companies to the community and even to help local companies grow is no longer available. And so it's not for me to judge whether that's the right policy decision or not. But what we can do is we can share facts. As an example, we have done a fairly comprehensive look at locations that we most aggressively compete against outside the state of Florida. So we're not competing against Palm Beach or Broward. We're competing against Atlanta, Georgia, Charlotte, North Carolina, Louisville, Kentucky, Nashville, Tennessee, Dallas and Austin, Texas, and a few other locations. And those locations come up over and over again when we're out competing for financial services, technology, and other industries that we've all talked about. What's interesting, though, is when we start doing a more comprehensive analysis of quality of living and costs associated with that, tax environment, and all the other factors that tend to go into location decisions, those particular locations are actually quite competitive with us here in Florida. And so then the question becomes, what else is available? So without the state incentive being available, local communities are now starting to develop their own packages. So here in Miami-Dade, at the county level, we've always had what we call the TJIF, the Targeted Jobs Incentive Fund. And that's a tax rebate of some of the property taxes that businesses pay. And it always pays for itself because it really is a partial rebate of the taxes that a company would pay over time. So that's still available. It's not a huge incentive, but it is something that we can represent when we're talking to a company that's looking to make a fairly large investment in real and personal property here in Miami-Dade. We also have some local or some community-based incentives in the city of Miami, in particular the DDA, and in Miami Beach. And they each have a relatively small incentive that can pay out up to, I think, about $150,000, maybe slightly more in certain circumstances, but it's enough to grab the attention of businesses that we and they are talking to. The good news is that Miami-Dade County views that as a real positive and is in the process right now of moving forward with legislation to authorize a county-wide incentive that would essentially mirror what's available in the city of Miami DDA and in Miami Beach. And the logic behind that is we really want to make sure that the entire county and every single municipality has the same opportunity to provide an incentive for a project that a single community would. So it's a bit of a challenge for us. It's great, and I think Bob pointed out all the other tangible assets that really are critically important to a company's decision making. And at the top of the list, in fact, talent is the real currency in economic development. So if you want to make money, hire the best talent pool, recruit the best talent pool you can make. Companies don't make money by getting incentives. They make it by selling products, and that requires highly talented people that can design, that can sell, and that can close with customers. And having a talent base is the most important asset in doing that. But we also know that sometimes you don't get to showcase all these other assets that Bob eloquently described if we don't have the ability to check that box in terms of an incentive up front. So there are some here in Miami-Dade County, primarily the TGIF, and then a couple of local ones, and another one that's moving through the Miami-Dade County Commission as we speak, and hopefully will be available sometime after the first of the year.
Thanks, Mike. And since you mentioned the importance of our talent base and our workforce, Rick, I'll go to you next if you want to add what some of your strategies are for attracting the businesses with regards, I'm assuming, to talent and workforce. So.
Well, one of the items that we do provide, and oftentimes, Mike has taken advantage of it, particularly when we're recruiting Amazon here and some other projects, is that we use our resources. Oftentimes, economic developers don't reach out to the boards, and which is, I think, is a loss, because we can use our resources to incentivize employers. We made a significant commitment to the Beacon Council and others to try to attract Amazon here. But the goal here is that, we can provide incentives in terms of on-the-job training, customized training, and actual dollars, so that it's a part of the package. So when they're recruiting talent, can we offset their labor costs in terms of training? Can we offset their costs in terms of training for their workforce they have here to reskill, retool their workers that are trying to maintain or retain those companies here? So it's really being very creative how you go about it. And so we work very, very well with the Beacon Council, looking at ways of being able to use our resources to recruit and retain companies here. And it's a major project, a project we worked with Mike, particularly. It wasn't to recruit a company, but it was used to be able to help that company find talent workers, which was with Bean Automotive. We created an apprenticeship program that provides an actual incentive, and we're using an apprenticeship model significantly different than what most folks would think or how they use it, and particularly in our education side. But for us, it was to subsidize the wages as these apprentices are working on the job. And so in this regard, I think the total labor cost for that year, for the year for Bean Automotive, is about $444,000. I think we committed or incentivized or put resources there about $120,000 to offset the cost. That's a huge, significant savings to the company in terms of the labor costs. And so it's a way for them not only to recruit, but to retain their existing workforce. So again, working with the Beacon Council and others is being creative how we provide training resources to help recruit companies and retain companies in our respective region.
Thanks, Rick. Kelly, I know you got a lot going up in Palm Beach County, so go ahead and tell us what you're doing up there.
Sure, Melanie. So incentives have never really, they don't make or break a deal. It's always been a small part of what we've provided at the development board. So we've done a couple of things, understanding that the state is not going to be a player in terms of any large dollars going to any project. So if you look at the 39 cities, break it up into north, central, and south. The south part of our county, the central part of our county, and the north part of our county both offer cash incentives somewhere around $3,000 per job created. And the Business Development Board has formed a wonderful relationship with the city of Boca Raton, West Palm, and Palm Beach Gardens to turn around incentive packages in less than 7 days, should a company request one. Now, keep in mind that if we facilitate 30 recruitment and retention and expansion projects a year, maybe 4 of those 30 will actually go for an incentive. So again, it's not a large part of what we do. In addition to the cash incentive, Palm Beach County Board of County Commissioners offers an ad valorem tax exemption if a company is going to construct or put something new on our tax roll, and that's for the county portion of the property tax. In addition to the ad valorem tax exemption, there are some cities that also offer ad valorem tax exemption. So you could receive a city and a county ad valorem tax exemption. In addition to that, we work very closely with our career source, and Rick is absolutely correct. We are connected to the hip, to Julia DiTallo at Career Source. She sits on our board, and very quickly she is able to issue a letter for our companies if they meet all the criteria for usually a maximum training grant of about $50,000 per company. Moving on to your question about what are we doing for workforce, Mike is absolutely right. You can have the most beautiful place to live in the world. You could have beautiful buildings, you can have incentives, but nobody moves to an area where they can't find talent. So we have closely aligned ourselves with the university presidents, and when a company is looking to create jobs in our county, sitting at the table will be Dr. John Kelly, Kaiser, Nova Southeastern, Dr. Kevin Ross, Palm Beach Atlantic, and CareerSource, all 7 of our universities, as well as now the University of Florida, talking to our companies about 2 things. One, how they can provide graduates a direct connect to the empty jobs or the new jobs that are being created. And 2, how can they align the curriculum that they are creating within their universities with the jobs that are being created. And that's through our Academic Leaders Council. Moving on to the third question that you asked, what do we have to offer? So we've realized that there's really 2 different types of clients that are coming in. One is more of your manufacturing, logistics, distribution, blue collar type of job. And the other is your white collar, your private equity, your hedge fund, your family office, your corporate headquarters, your technology type of job. For the white collar, we've decided to create a concierge service. So how do we get our children into private schools? What type of hospital medical service is available? Tell us about the lifestyle. Tell us about apartments, condos, single family homes. Show us neighborhoods. And then also diversity, equity, and inclusion. So the concierge level services that we provide is very white glove, and it answers all of those questions. And then our sort of manufacturing, logistics, distribution is a completely different set of services that we provide, as well as information on transportation. How do we get our product in and out of the port? How do we get our product in and out of the airport? What are the direct flights to the key markets that we serve? So we make sure to bring in all of those leaders at our table in order to sell Palm Beach County.
Thank you, Kelly. I love the concierge service. Clever, clever, very smart. We know what everybody's looking for when they get over here, right? So that helps a lot. So let's talk, you guys keep mentioning, we're here for a lot of workforce. We hear supply chains and finances. These are all the top of mind things for people when you're running a day-to-day business, and they all intertwine together. So I guess what would you say is your #1 challenge that you've encountered when it comes to helping businesses grow as we approach this post-COVID area, and what are you guys doing to tackle it? Rick, I know you're going to say workforce, so I'm figuring I'm just going to go ahead and start with you on that and see what you come up with. Tell us what we're all going to do.
Workforce, again, yes, it is the challenge, and it's also the challenge of wages for our employers. The competition between the talent pools within, not only within the respective industry, but also across industries. And so one of the things that we've been doing is utilizing our resources to, one, help again incentivize employers to raise wages, but be able to offset the labor costs to attract and retain their existing workforce. But again, it is about finding great talent, but also, again, the challenge becomes the wages to help our companies grow and maintain a good talent pool.
We got to get those wages up, right? So, Kelly, since you talked already a little bit about this, you want to add anything to this?
Certainly. So I'm just coming off of a trip from New York, where talent was the #1 issue in terms of Northeastern companies taking a look at the South Florida market. They brought talent up here at the very beginning. So a couple of areas that we're focused on. #1, we have to grow our talent within our universities, and that's educating our university presidents and our superintendent about the jobs that are right here in the backyard, and that those graduates don't need to leave South Florida in order to get a good quality job. #2, we have to market the talent that we have in South Florida. We have to do a better job showcasing the graduates that are coming out of our system so that relocating and expanding companies know that we have some great talent here. Third, we have to educate our high school students to understand the jobs that are in our backyard. So as we grow our high school students, communicating with them on the jobs that are here so that they know that when they go away, to university or they stay here in our backyard. We have to do a better job preventing the brain drain. Fourth, we have to recruit more talent to this area. We have 35,000 jobs available and only 30,000 people looking for talent. And last, I would conclude with this. Regardless of how we grow, market, educate, and recruit our talent, it's very difficult for our talent to afford to live in South Florida. And so affordable housing is an issue that our talent faces. Even if they can get a job here at $75,000, we have to really work closely with our local city, county, and state government officials to help them understand that if they don't play a role in developing more housing options for our college educated students, it's going to be very difficult for them to afford to live in South Florida.
So true. So Bob, you mentioned the infrastructure partnerships and things going. This might be a good time to mention it, but thought I would go to you.
Thank you, Melanie. Yeah, and you know, the things that Kelly has touched on and Mike and Rick are clearly, you know, similar across county lines. Another part of infrastructure I think is important. I mean, part of our biggest challenge, or you know, Fort Lauderdale's biggest challenge is communicating how South Florida is growing and changing. And I touched on this a little bit earlier, that we are becoming a more sophisticated community. We're just not a beach town anymore. I was up in Atlanta a couple weeks ago on a trip up there. I was talking to one of the businesses, and they were reluctant to look at South Florida because they're like, well, you know, I have great memories of vacations down there, but what's the corporate fabric really like? You know, what's going on in your downtown? And sharing with them the growth of high-rise residential. So it does really become a 20-hour city where you've got, you know, lots of things to do. You can easily walk from your office to your home. You know, you've got lots of choices within easy distance. More and more people are wanting to be less dependent on cars. So what are our options? So I think, you know, promoting that brand and that reputation that we have a lot to offer, and you know, we're maturing as a part of the country. I think we're growing in the right way, and we've got a great balance of quality of life. And I think if the last 20 months has taught us anything, it's caused people to be really introspective. Like, well, how am I spending a majority of my time? And you know, is work, you know, preventing me from enjoying time with family or time with friends? You know, how do I get a better balance of those things? And I think it's really shaking people up enough that they're making significant career changes to accommodate what they think is a better use of their time, and they want to have a bigger impact. On the infrastructure side, you know, when you get past incentives and things like that, one of the new things that has just come online in Broward County, and Broward County teamed up with Nova Southeastern University to create the Levan Center of Innovation. And this is a center that's built on the campus. It's a 55,000 square foot facility. Now, part of it is designed to accelerate and incubate companies, and that's important. But on the infrastructure side, I think a couple of the things that John Wensveen, the director of the center, has added is a cybersecurity. So we actually have a cyber range. So companies can come in and validate and challenge their own IT people, and how a potential, you know, bad person that would want to hold you ransom or do other damage to your technology, can they break through your system? Are you creating the right firewalls? So the cyber range is something brand new for Broward County, and it's open to any business, but they want to also teach students in cybersecurity and how to create more effective systems to block. And I think it always goes down to, you know, you've also got to train your employees. You can have the best systems in the world, but if someone opens that interesting looking email that has an attachment that they weren't expecting, you know, they could be, you know, single-handedly that weak link that makes a company vulnerable. So the cybersecurity aspect of the Innovation Center is one. The second is spatial computing. You know, I firmly believe that companies like Magic Leap and others that are creating, you know, a different way for us to communicate with our technology and interact with our technology is going to be the way of the future. I think we all sort of take our smartphones for granted, you know, this touch screen and how easy it is to use as a computer device as much as a phone. But the reality is the iPhone came out in 2009. So it's not that old. And, what is the next wave of how we interact with our technology? And I think spatial computing is going to be one of those methods of how we interact with our devices. And as Magically would say, how do we bend human physiology to better access and integrate with our computer systems? And that's what they're working on. So, where our hope is that, and I'm a big proponent of this, is that we create a center of excellence for spatial computing at NSU. So again, we've got Magic Leap, which is close by, which is one of the industry leaders. But then how do we encourage more students to get involved in that area of study? But then also tell folks that we are a center of excellence. We are cultivating, the best and the brightest working in this area. Magic Leap is a phenomenal, asset for us in Broward County. And then the third thing that we're working on is aerospace. And people may not think that South Florida is home to a lot of aerospace companies. I talked about aviation early on, and maintenance, repair, and overhaul in aviation is a little bit different than advanced manufacturing, where you're actually manufacturing component parts for rockets. But we have 3D manufacturing companies in Broward County. Centavia is one of those that actually makes nozzles for rocket engines that launch satellites into orbit. And that's all being manufactured in very clean environments. Not your old sweatshop or assembly line mentality for manufacturing. These are highly technical, highly modernized, machines that actually make parts out of powder, out of thin air, and they make component parts for aerospace. And I think that's part of where our future is. But if we want to focus on aviation and aerospace again as a part of potential growth for South Florida, with our great proximity to Brevard County and the Space Coast, there's no reason that we couldn't become a destination for component part manufacturing for satellites, rocket engines, and other space-related component parts. And I think it's a natural for South Florida.
Thanks, Bob. Mike, you have anything to add to all this conversation we're having on this question?
I mean, two things are real challenges for us here in Miami-Dade County. The first is the ability to do outreach beyond our immediate surroundings. Certainly, tools like FaceTime and Zoom and others have made it easier for us to connect and communicate with prospects. But the ability to meet clients where they are. Bob just referenced a trip to Atlanta. I think Kelly referenced a trip to New York. Those are things that we're all just starting to do again after nearly 2 years of being away from significant customer engagement. For us, the domestic challenges are not as big as the international. Miami has been a huge draw for international businesses from all of Latin America, the Caribbean, and Europe, with Spain being our #1 destination for business attraction activity. All of that has been literally halted because of the challenges that we've been dealing with. So #1, we're excited to see the United States opening again so that we have opportunities to really focus on the international business opportunities that have been available to Miami-Dade historically. So that was kind of #1 issue for us in our core business. The other side of the equation, though, is we have this incredibly diverse community. And if we don't make sure that we pay attention to diversity and inclusion, we will leave behind a massive portion of our community as we enjoy this prosperity that all of our communities are seeing right now. In Miami-Dade, for example, the companies that we worked with last year, the average wages were well over $100,000. Now that's a new high watermark for businesses that are jobs that are new to Miami-Dade County. Those jobs, when you look at the economic impact of them, will create thousands of additional jobs because the wages are so high. The opportunities created by that must be afforded to our most economically distressed. We have nearly 300,000 people in poverty in Miami-Dade County. And for a community that's as prosperous as we are, we can't afford to leave those folks behind. So a lot of the work that we're doing with Rick Beasley and probably 20 or 30 other organizations is centered around how we bring our most economically distressed populations into the same kind of economic prosperity that we're seeing in a lot of the shiny buildings that we see throughout Miami-Dade County. So 2 big problems, right? 2 challenges that we're working on. the economically distressed to ensure that they don't get left behind while we ride this wave of prosperity, and then regaining our access to all the international business that historically was ideally targeted for Miami-Dade County.
Mike, thanks for that. There's so much we could talk just on workforce and all that kind of stuff and what we're doing. We've got about 10 minutes left, and I want to have time for questions for everybody. So we're going to move along, and thank you, Mike, for the segue. We are going to talk a little bit about workforce equity and the CARES Act. We know that funding is tied to having a focus on equity, and we want to hear how each of your organizations are reaching and impacting low-income communities and working towards achieving this equity. How are you guys addressing it? What are your plans to evaluate effectiveness of your programs? And really, what are you doing to make sure that we're moving the needle, in each of the counties and stuff? And since Mike, you kind of led us into this part of the conversation, why don't you get us started?
Yeah, thanks. So I'll talk about just a couple of programs, and that way I leave some time for my colleagues. First and foremost, our program, Miami Community Ventures, is something we launched in a pilot mode a couple years ago. We now are ramping it up. And what are we doing with Miami Community Ventures? We're focused on individuals who are the most economically distressed in our community. It is returning citizens who struggle with finding jobs after being released from incarceration. It is individuals who are receiving some type of public assistance. And then the disabled across a lot of different categories. Those seem to be the three most economically distressed groups. So we've targeted them for the Miami Community Ventures program. And what do? We help those individuals gain access to living wage jobs. And so last year, as an example, we helped 158 individuals. The average wage they received in the jobs was a little over $17 an hour. That's about 123% of the living wage as defined in Miami-Dade County for a single individual. So we were well above that. And we have partnerships with organizations like CareerSource, OIC, Florida Blue, JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America, and so many other organizations that's helping us both with funding, access to jobs, and there's literally 30 or 40 companies that are hiring these individuals into creative jobs. We've also discovered that we can help individuals that are disabled. One of our coolest placements is a young guy named Jonathan who discovered us through Miami Lighthouse for the Blind. Jonathan is now working as a customer service representative at Florida Blue, and he's making a good wage where he can support himself. So it's situations like that. So the Community Ventures program is our biggest initiative. It's all about helping individuals get access to living wage jobs. And then what we provide through partnerships like OIC and others is access to robust wraparound services. So if an individual needs access to transportation, they might need uniforms, they might need tools, they might need financial literacy, they might need childcare support. We provide access to all those programs and funding support to make it happen so that those individuals can focus on being successful on the job. And employers love it because we take away all the typical things that cause an individual to lose access to the job. The other thing that we're doing is with small businesses that tend to be economically distressed is also. These are companies that are under $500,000 of revenue and under 10 employees. They tend to struggle more than you would imagine. And so we're also launching a small business accelerator in partnership with a lot of different organizations funded by Bank of America and the Rockefeller Foundation. And the goal there is to help these entrepreneurs get access to high value services that they need in order to be successful. It's access to capital, access to talent, access to new customers and helping them find customers, helping them create a digital footprint so that they know how to use social media to find customers. They have websites that are viable and things like that. So we really are trying to reach these economically distressed populations, those that are in business on their own and need help, as well as the individuals who simply need access to a living wage job.
Thanks, Mike. So we've got about 6 minutes left. I'm going to ask everybody to kind of keep the response about 2 minutes each so we can get the questions to you all. Rick, you want to take this one next?
Will do. I'll make it real quick. First and foremost, again, we work very well with the Beacon Council with Community Ventures. But another initiative that we launched as a workforce board was centered around eroding the digital divide when we launched Tech Hire Centers. We make a major investment with organizations like Big Brothers Big Sisters, to launch a Tech Hire Center with them. Again, the focus there was to concentrate on those youth in distressed areas so that they have access to technology. Another component we did with Opelika CDC, again, working with a city that traditionally had the highest unemployment and highest crime, but working with the Opelika CDC, we launched an initiative to focus on a distressed area so that, again, it erodes the divide by providing access not only to the training, but to computers. Our last initiative was with the YWCA. Again, focus on enhancing women into the area of IT, working with Carrie Ann Rhodes over there at the YWCA to be able to assist them. Again, an investment of resources that we put forth to create these centers, put in the computers, but also providing the funding for the training. Right now we're trying to expand that with the Mexican American Council to erode, again, the digital divide with those who are migrant workers, and then also with St. Law to focus and concentrate on workers who are from refugee backgrounds. But lastly, let me say this, that one of the things that we have done to assist, again, those small employers, our board approved a waiver request that we're sending to the U.S. Department of Labor that allows us to be able to incentivize employers who are operating in opportunity zones, and when they're trying to hire, allows us to be able to reimburse them up to 100% of their of their training costs, which is typically their wages. So for a small employer or for an employer in an opportunity zone that has been designated as a distressed area, here's a way for us to use our dollars to reimburse that employer, but more importantly, get folks back to work in areas that really need an economic rebound.
Thank you, Rick. Kelly, what are you guys doing at the BDB in regards to
So same as Mike, we're engaged with all of those organizations, but most recently have engaged with Quantum Foundation as well as the Black Chamber of Commerce. They have approached us very early stages, more to report later, about the recruitment of more Black businesses specifically to Palm Beach County. We're interested in taking a look at a more laser focused, so more to come, like I said, in that area. But also one more thing to add, we're taking a look at low income neighborhoods in our county and how to build on the challenges that they have faced. Some of our schools are operating, as I mentioned before, with 30% literacy rate. So we're bringing the private sector to the table in Hispanic and Black neighborhoods to build up those schools, enhance those schools, and bring the private sector to the table in the urban areas to create more focused curriculums that will benefit the community, specifically in Wall Street South.
Thank you, Kelly. You all are great. That left you 2 minutes. Bob, go for it.
Thank you, Melanie. I'm going to try to do it in a minute. So let's see if I can do that. So yeah, economic mobility and how do you disrupt decades of cyclical poverty? About 5 years ago, JP Morgan Chase funded a skills gap analysis for us. And a part of that analysis, I asked them to help us identify the most impacted zip codes, economically distressed zip codes in Broward County. We identified ultimately 6 zip codes in Broward County that encompass 12 cities. And we're working with, and so we've been doing this pre-COVID. This has been something we've been working on for a while. But it's how do we bring training to the community instead of expecting someone to get on a bus and go to a college for additional certification training to get that better job. We've been working closely with President Greg Hale, the president of Broward College, on a program he's got called Broward Up, where he's actually bringing faculty into the community. So instead of having to go somewhere at your local library, at your local community center, there'll be faculty there to provide classes for certification for new jobs. We're working on connecting the people who utilize the Broward College training to the actual jobs. So, we're doing a lot of work with Amazon right now on logistical facilities. And I thought I'd ask Amazon, if we bring you candidates that have gone through Broward College training that are from these 6 zip codes, would you give them preferential hiring? Would you give them a first look? And Amazon said, hey, if you help us screen and create a qualified pool of candidates, of course we would give them preferential hiring. So we're doing things like that haven't been done in the past to connect some of these residents. But I think it's the only way that we're going to disrupt these decades of poverty. And the latest thing is Florida Blue last week did a ribbon cutting for a brand new facility at Dillard High School, where they're actually have an embedded facility within the campus where they're providing students with real-time training. It's an intern program, but they earn while they're going to school. And when they graduate the program, they can pursue a job at Florida Blue, or maybe pursue additional education where they could go to work for Florida Blue in a different way. But it's exposing students to a career path they never knew existed before. And Florida Blue invested over $600,000 in this facility in the heart of Fort Lauderdale. So it's examples like that we want to attract more businesses to make those investments, because I think those are things that have a significant, tactical impact on these neighborhoods.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you all for this, because all these programs are just so important to strengthening our communities, and we really, really appreciate what y'all are doing in this area. Well, that puts us at 2:20. I had tons more questions, but I can't get to them all. So an hour is not enough time with you all. Too much good brain power going on here. So with that, I'm going to ask, Araldo, are you going to do the question and answers?
Yes, there are a couple of questions. Mark, you still there? So there's two questions for Mark. What particular sector in construction increased, residential or commercial? And also, does any of the data provided account for underemployment in the specified areas?
Thanks, Geralda. So to the first question on the construction data, so that does not account for either residential or commercial. The most recent data that's available is aggregated for the construction industry as a whole. So your question had me thinking though, and I went back into the Bureau of Labor Statistics data to try to piece that together. And we can compare 2019 to 2020 residential and commercial construction employment in total. And essentially there were decreases in unemployment in all of the sectors, residential and commercial construction, with the exception of modest increases in Miami-Dade and Palm Beach County for the residential construction.
Perfect. So there are a couple of questions from Ms. Daniela Pierre, and I know some of them I think you've already touched on or went through, but I will go ahead and ask the first one. As more workplaces embrace telework and work becomes more automated, what are some initiatives in place to prepare workers for this trend? I think we answered that a little bit, yeah. The next question is, during the pandemic, we've experienced some challenges.
I did have one comment related to that I think is critical. I think the point was made earlier, but it is critical that individuals across our community have access to broadband technology. I think that's probably the fly in the ointment that prevents our entire community from being able to take advantage of the ability to work remote. You've got to have that. So if it's not available at your home, your choice is to go to an office or to go to a Starbucks or something of that nature. And that, of course, is suboptimal.
Perfect. The next question is, during the pandemic, we've experienced some challenges with supplies. Looking ahead and approaching a better normal, are there any discussions to bring more innovation and talent to our local supply chain market? Please share. Not sure if anyone wants to take that.
Looks like no take.
Well, you can think about it, and if we have time, we can answer it, or we can respond to Daniela, Ms. Pierre later on. I'll follow up directly with her. The next question is from Ms. Beverly Provost. I think Kelly touched on this a little earlier. Are we competitive with workforce housing? I keep seeing rents and homes prices going up. We already discussed it, so we can move on to the next one. Does the Targeted Jobs Incentive Fund apply to new companies in Miami-Dade, in the Tri-County area, or existing establishments?
Yeah, so that's I think that's a Miami-Dade question. And so the answer is it applies to companies that are locating within Miami-Dade County, not the Tri-County area. We have no ability to extend that credit beyond the borders of Miami-Dade County. And when I say we, meaning Miami-Dade County actually extends the credit. So hopefully that's the response you're looking for.
And this applies to new businesses or existing establishments as well?
it can apply to both. It just requires that they be expanding and making a significant investment in either real or personal property in order for them to be eligible. And of course, job creation.
Perfect. There's a lot of untapped talent right here in our region. Oftentimes they are priced out of the market and end up leaving 2 points north. However, what's available, upskilling, mentorship, and so on to help activate those who might be significantly underemployed in Miami-Dade or Broward into available opportunities. Rick, maybe you might want to take that. I'm not sure.
Well, I was wondering what's the question, or is that the question, or the programs that provide the?
So I'll read the question once more. There's a lot of untapped talent right here in our region. Oftentimes they are priced out of the market and end up leaving up north. However, what's available, upskilling, mentorship, etc., to help activate those who might be significantly underemployed in Miami-Dade, Broward, into available opportunities?
So let me say it this way across, whether it's Broward, whether it's Miami-Dade County, Monroe County, whether it's Palm Beach County, CareerSource South Florida, CareerSource Broward, CareerSource Palm Beach offers a number of programs to our citizens in our respective counties for skills upgrades, particularly those who have lost their jobs because of the pandemic. Our goal there is to reskill, retool, so that we can make your skill sets more marketable to the employers. And actually, again, as we talked today, employers are needing talent, and so there's opportunities. Also, in partnership with Beacon Council, we provide wraparound services for those areas that we've targeted for economic redevelopment. And so again, reach out. You can reach out to my office is 305-929-1501 or www.careersourcesfl.com. For us here in Dade County, it's CareerSource Broward.com, and it's CareerSourcePalmBeach.com, that you can reach out to my colleagues in those respective communities.
Perfect.
And I would just add that, a part of it is getting the word out, what programs are available. We're doing a lot of work directly in the communities. We're hosting focus groups of single parents. We're actually hiring them as co-researchers to spend a couple hours every, 1 or 2 nights a week to talk about the barriers they're seeing firsthand. So it's just not data we're reading off a report, but these are people in the community that, really are looking for what's that opportunity to get some training and land a career. And I think when you look at Broward College and their work in Broward Up, we're very fortunate that our college president is personally committed to the Broward Up project. They received $30 million from the Mackenzie Scott Foundation to put into this specific program. They've also got some additional federal dollars that just came in a grant with some other partners. So Broward College is really disrupting, how we've tried to provide that gap. So if you're underemployed right now, if you're a very talented person, but you don't have a certification, maybe you don't have that high school degree, how can Broward College, help you bridge that gap to get the start with a good, entry-level job? And, we find that a lot of companies now are changing their minimum requirements for jobs because they're not finding the talent they need. And it might not require a 4-year degree or even a 2-year degree. Maybe what it requires is a couple of certifications that, you've been able to get through Broward College to get your foot in the door and launch a career with a company like Amazon or others that are offering great entry-level careers. So I think we're working hard along with partners like Broward College and the Urban League and OIC to go into these communities and share the information. The biggest heartbreaking part of a lot of this is that people just don't know what's available. And to Mike's point earlier, broadband access. I mean, if you're thinking you're going to communicate with these folks through websites and through that means of communication, we're not getting to the target audience we need to get to. So a lot of it is person to person in the community, finding the matriarchs and patriarchs in these communities that people listen to, whether it's faith leaders or others. But we've got to get the word out a lot differently than we have in the past, and that's what we're concentrating on with key partners.
Perfect. There are no more questions, Melanie. Perfect
All right,
timing.
well, you guys, it's 2:30 exactly, and there you have it, everyone. I want to thank again our guest speakers. You guys are amazing, great information. Our audience participants, wonderful questions. The council, you guys are terrific for hosting this event, and the U.S. Development Administration support. It has just been a pleasure being the moderator and your moderator for today. And as a reminder, the recorded webinar and Mark's presentation will be posted on the council website. And thank you all for joining us today. Have a great rest of the day and week.
Thank you. Have a great
Thank you
day.
all.
Thank you, Melanie.
Thank you, guys.